Welcome to Chicago Counterpoint Television. I'm your host, Attorney Jeffery Leving. This is brought to you by the Fatherhood Educational Institute. It's a pleasure to be here another Monday evening. Great show, bringing truth and justice, free speech to the Chicago community. And just remember, we can be whatever we dream. And this is an important show, so I'd like our viewing audience to call in, especially tonight, because we have a super guest tonight. We have attorney Kevin O'Connor, a brilliant litigator who handles police brutality cases, seeking accountability in our system, brain damaged baby cases. He worked on the Glenowitz case. He worked on the Darren Hanna case. He's handled very, very significant cases. A brilliant lawyer. Call in and ask him your questions. And Kevin, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you having me, and I hope I can help some of your callers today and as much as I can.
You definitely will. First caller, you're on the air. I'm Attorney Jeffery Leving, and we're very fortunate to have Kevin O'Connor on, a brilliant attorney. What can we do for you?
Yes, thanks for taking my call. My question is for your guest, Mr. Leving. My niece was born with a Wilms tumor. She went in for a 6-month checkup, and they didn't know that there was a tumor. But by 12 months, it had grown to the size of a grapefruit on a 1-year-old baby. So I'm wondering, is that something that is possibly a misdiagnosis, or are those types of cases that you take?
This is a perfect inquiry for Attorney Kevin O'Connor. Mr. O'Connor, could you please address this important caller?
It's very important for people to understand that that would be what's called a medical negligence case. Medical negligence cases in Illinois are a little different than in any other type of case, like an auto accident case. And there's really a 3-step process. The first is you'd have to sit down and get a free consultation to meet, and I've handled these types of cases, unfortunately, for children that's had this. We review the facts with you and decide whether it's worth ordering the records, and it sounds like from your case it would be. The next step is you order all the medical records. Once those records come in, it's analyzed to make sure what you're saying is accurate or they documented it accurately. And then you have it reviewed by a physician who's in the same practice who would say, did this meet the standard of care of a physician or not? And certainly it's a free consultation to look into it. You should always look into it. And I've told people, even the people that I tell that you don't probably have a case, at least you're able at that point to satisfy yourself that you've done everything you can do within your rights, because there is a statute of limitations as to how long to bring your claim, and there's also a statute of repose. So even if it's a minor, some people think, oh, I've got until they're an adult. That's not necessarily the case. There is time limitations that prevent it, so I would encourage you to look into it to find out if something went wrong.
Great call. We appreciate your call. And before we take the next caller, I want to let everybody know that if you need any information concerning the Fatherhood Educational Institute, which is bringing this important show to you, just call 312-795-9060. That's 312-795-9060. And again, 312-795-9060. Now, before we take on the next caller, Kevin O'Connor worked on that very, very high-profile Glenowitz case where it was reported to me that a police officer faked his own death. He also worked on the Darren Hanna case where his client was allegedly beat to death by 6 police officers. Terrible cases, but he's seeking justice. He's fighting for justice, and he's protecting the less fortunate who don't have money to hire lawyers. And he's done a great job, because if 6 police officers beat somebody to death, somebody who's unarmed, in that situation there needs to be accountability, because without accountability, how will that type of behavior ever be controlled, and how can it be stopped? And I'd like to get into that case, but I know we have another caller. So caller, you're on the air. Jeff Leving and Kevin O'Connor, what can we do for you this evening?
I have a friend whose daughter was seriously injured in a school bus accident, and the mother of the daughter doesn't want to file any kind of papers to get any compensation for the daughter. What can my friend do about that?
Mr. O'Connor, please help this gentleman.
That's a wonderful question. Jeff and I have talked about that because oftentimes in parent situation, you may have a separation, you may have a divorce, you may have one parent who has custody of a child, another parent doesn't. But that doesn't mean that just because one parent won't pursue it, the other parent absolutely has the right to pursue that case and should on behalf of their child. For religious reasons, for other reasons, some people just think, you know what, things happen, we shouldn't pursue it. But who's going to be left with the lifetime of bills or care for that child? Absolutely, that case should be pursued. The father, if it's the mother that doesn't want to pursue it, the father has an absolute right, as his rights, for that child to pursue that case, even if he doesn't have custody, which I know you know that, Jeff, because you've handled those types of things and you're the prominent guy on that issue. But it's crucial that he has the right, just as well as the mother, even if he's not the custodial parent, to bring that case. And absolutely that case should be brought because somebody, most likely the father, is going to be responsible for at least 50% of those bills that you know of, right?
Exactly. Very, very important question. We appreciate your call. We have another caller. It looks like the phones are all lit up, so we better try and get these callers on the air. Kevin, next caller, you're on the air with attorneys Jeff Leving and Kevin O'Connor.
Hello, Mr. Leving. I was at the Martin Luther King breakfast last week, and I saw you there with Cardinal Coopage and Governor Rauner and Jesse Jackson. It must have been quite an honor.
Yeah, it was very important, and Governor Rauner signed a very important bill into law, which will protect many, many, many children in the state of Illinois from lead poisoning. It was a very important event. I'm glad you were there. And I hope you're there next year. And if you have any other questions or information, please call Chicago Counterpoint Television through the Fatherhood Educational Institute at 312-795-9060. That's 312-795-9060. And additionally, please take a look at the Fatherhood Educational Institute's website. And here's a quick shot of their website. You can see on the left-hand corner me and Congressman Danny K. Davis, who will be a guest here too. Congressman Danny K. Davis will be a guest on this show before the season's over. Next caller, you're on the air with attorneys Jeffery Leving and Kevin O'Connor. What can we do for you?
Hi, I'm a young guy. I was recently married for a while. We had a relationship, and eventually we had a child together. However, much later we had a pregnancy test, and we found that the child was actually conceived during a moment where my wife and I had consensually decided to cuckold me. And we've been wondering if I have any legal recourse in the sense of, do I actually have to pay for that child? Do I have to pay alimony?
Well, you're talking about child support, not alimony, and I definitely would like to address that with you. Call the Fatherhood Educational Institute. I want to discuss that with you, and you could contact the Fatherhood Educational Institute at 312-795-9060, and also take a look at our website, fatherhood-edu.org, and I will definitely talk to you about this. The phones are lighting off the hooks, and we have to get all these callers on, but that's a great question. I look forward to talking to you. Next caller, you're on the air with attorneys Jeff Leving and Kevin O'Connor. You're on the air.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to speak to both of you. I had a question. I am a recently divorced mother, and my child was a passenger in a vehicle, not with myself or with my ex. Which of us would have the right to pursue?
Talk a little to the phone so we could hear you clearly. Thank you.
Sure. I apologize. I'm recently divorced, and my child was a passenger in a vehicle with neither myself nor my ex driving the vehicle. Who has the permission, the right to go ahead and pursue a claim for her?
Well, it would really be preferable if both parents, you and your ex, were working as a team. I always believe in a situation like this, if you can get both parents to have a united front to work as a team, because a team is only as strong as its weakest link, and you want to have two strong links because you're stronger together in this type of a situation. But you don't necessarily have to take that route if there's parental conflict. But Kevin O'Connor is the guest here, and we have to get another caller on soon. But Kevin, could you please help this caller?
You are absolutely right. I mean, it's the best interest of the child. The parents should have the best interest of the child working together to resolve that issue. But either parent has the right, like you had mentioned, you know that. There's clearly, whether you're the custodial parent or non-custodial parent, if this is a minor who's involved, because the parents are ultimately responsible for the medical bills for that child anyway, whether you're the custodial parent or not under the law. So yes, each parent would have the right to bring that claim, even though the other one is not acting.
Exactly.
They both be named then?
You name the person who's responsible for the bills has their own claim for the bills, so they're named separately, and then there's a separate count for the child itself, or the child is something that we call assign the rights to the parents to pursue the parents can assign the rights to the minor to pursue the medical expenses during their minority.
But keep in mind, working as a team is preferable, because a shrewd defense counsel can try and divide and conquer both parents. So you don't want a shrewd defense counsel to try and manipulate or separate you and your ex in this type of litigation. But thank you for calling. Our next caller, welcome to Chicago Counterpoint. I'm Attorney Jeff Leving, and we have Kevin O'Connor here. What can we do for you?
Hi there, Attorney Leving.
Hello.
I know that you sued Geraldo Riviera for about $60 million. Was that in California or in New York?
It was in California, and that's Geraldo Rivera, and I sued him in California in San Bernardino County, but it was interesting. I took his deposition in New York City. It was an interesting case, very interesting case, and if you have any more information, or if you want any more information, you could always contact the Fatherhood Educational Institute. Take a look at their website, fatherhood-edu.org. You have a snapshot here of part of the website. Caller, you're on the air with Attorney Leving and O'Connor.
Hi, my husband, Mr. Leving and Mr. O'Connor. I've been searching for an attorney, and I just seem to come up against a bunch of walls. Each attorney's office that I come to, I don't know who I'm getting or how to pick my attorney. What questions should I ask? Where do I begin with it?
Well, that's a great question for Kevin O'Connor. And what if somebody is indigent? What if they can't afford an attorney and they're a victim of a horrific accident? Or what if their child was born brain damaged because of the negligence of an incompetent physician? What can someone do, especially a dad, do in a situation like that if he's completely broke?
Well, one of the interesting parts about injury practice is we work on what's called a contingent fee. So that means we don't charge you unless we recover for you. So your consultation is free. There is no attorney's fees charged unless we collect on your behalf. That's the most important thing, and that law was put into place or allowed because then everybody's equal under the law and gets an equal chance under the law. The question by the caller, which is really good, and it brings me back to a joke of the movie My Cousin Vinny, right? When you talked about who's going to represent you. You got people like Mr. Leving, who's well known, you hear his name, you know his reputation. The people in the injury field are not as well known, and you don't know who you're getting when you walk in. I've suggested for people like you pick your doctor, you pick your lawyer. You ask the right questions. If I have a doctor who's going to operate on my arm, I might ask him, how many times have you done this operation? If you have a lawyer, you should ask, how many times have you gone to trial on my kind of case? I've had the pleasure of having over 70 jury trials in my practice over the course of my career. The lawyer who you pick, ask him those questions. How many times have you handled a case like this? How many trials have you done? Because if you don't, you might get the doctor who's only done one surgery or doesn't know your surgery, and you're going to get whatever you choose. So be an advised consumer, just like I'm sure you encourage people to be an advised consumer when they come to you.
I guarantee you, if I was going to get a surgical procedure on my foot, I wouldn't hire a doctor who had performed the surgery only 6 times and had been sued for 3 of those surgical procedures. That would not be somebody I'd want to utilize. Research is critical, and it's easy to get it. Caller, you're on the air with Attorney Jeffery Leving and Attorney Kevin O'Connor.
Hi, Kevin. I saw you on the show, and I wanted to thank you for handling my dad's case.
Okay, can you speak a little louder?
Yes, this is for Kevin O'Connor. I wanted to thank him for handling my dad's case.
Is this Ahmad? I don't want to say your last name because I'll keep the privacy of your case. I recognize your voice, and thank you for calling. He had a very interesting case. A lot of it was confidential, but his father got hurt overseas. Several lawyers had rejected that case because the laws overseas were you get like 3 rubles and you could beat somebody in a square. It was about all you could get. But we managed to bring the case here in the United States and to get a substantial recovery of about $4.5 million for his father, where otherwise there would have been no remedy. So I appreciate the call, and it's important because they become like family to me. They're great people, they're a great family, and they were in desperate need to have somebody truly help them to overcome the situation that they were put in, where people were refusing to help them recover for their injuries.
Well, a $4.5 million recovery in U.S. dollars is better than 0 or a few rubles, and that's how you get accountability for wrongdoing. You need accountability, and sometimes the only way to find accountability is through punitive damages and some type of legal punishment, such as in the Darren Hanna case. I'm very concerned about that case. I know you represented Darren Hanna, and that's a terrible case. Really, I know we have a lot of calls waiting, and we got to get them on the air. But very quickly, what happened in the Hanna case?
Darren Hanna was the seminal case that happened before Ferguson, Missouri, before all these things we see. It was a shame. Up in North Chicago, there was a pattern and practice of beating people that were unarmed by the police. Darren Hanna was actually involved in a domestic. He had a pregnant girlfriend where they were in a domestic fight. They didn't have lawyers. They didn't have people like you helping to keep it civil within the court system, which they probably should have had. But the police were called because of that. And he was beaten to death by 6 police officers, and he was unarmed. At first, they tried to say it was self-defense. He was trying to kill somebody. We were able to uncover through the 911 tapes, through other audio recordings, that we proved that they actually beat him after he was in handcuffs. And it was a shame. It was a tragedy of justice that happened. And it was a beautiful family who really did not riot, would not let people who would riot to come with them. It was a wonderful result. It settled for $3 million. But that wasn't the real result. As a result of that case in North Chicago, before I was involved, there was 188 allegations of police brutality. After that case was over, I'm glad to report in the last 2 years there have been zero police brutality. So we made a change, and rarely as a lawyer do we get the opportunity like you have, and I know you've done a lot of changes in fathers' rights, but rarely do we get to actually change the community for the better as a result of a case.
Changing the community for the better, protecting the community, and making an impact is why we exist, and that's what we do, and I respect you for what you do, because not all lawyers do it. But I have a lot of respect for you, because that is a travesty of justice that that man was beaten to death. And the police were called allegedly because it was claimed he was beating his, I believe it was his girlfriend.
Correct.
Yeah. So a lot of false claims, real claims, false claims of abuse, whatever they are. But when the police are called, they shouldn't beat somebody to death. And these are cases that should never happen. Next caller, welcome to Chicago Counterpoint Television. You're here with attorneys Jeffery Leving and Kevin O'Connor. What can we do for you?
Yes, Kevin, I heard how you were involved with the Glinowitz case, how a police officer faked his own death, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that case.
That was the Fox Lake case that I think everyone saw around the country, where Officer Glenowitz faked his own death right out of the box. People were suspicious of what happened. I had represented one young man who had been bothered by this officer several times even before his death, and then to add insult to injury, they actually came after him after the death because he identified that it was two black men and a white man who did it to him, and in Fox Lake there were very few African Americans that live in that area. He was targeted by the police, the ATF, everybody else. They broke down his door, they put guns to his child's head. Crazy things went on, and we filed suit in federal court and had a nice recovery for him on that case. But it should never have happened. We had a whole country out looking for a police officer's killers that didn't exist, and it all stemmed from a department that kept a blind eye to this man who was doing bad things over a number of years. So it's accountability, like you said, Jeff. We need to be accountable. We got to hold our police officers to a professional standard. We got to hold our doctors to a professional standard. We got to hold our lawyers to a professional standard to take the appropriate cases and to try and make a change like you've done with Father's Rights, to make a change in the community so we're not just perceived as the evil lawyers, which unfortunately too many people see. There's a heart and a good side to what we do, and hopefully we got into this for the right reason, which is to make a change in the community, which I know you've done on several occasions as well.
Well, thank you, because we can't give up hope, and as lawyers, we need to have courage to fight for justice, because courage is the magic that make dreams come true. And justice is not a luxury only the rich can afford. Next caller, you're on the air with attorneys Jeffery Leving and Kevin O'Connor.
Hi, Mr. Leving and Mr. O'Connor. My name is Maureen Franceschi, and I've used Mr. O'Connor's services many times. And I just want to say what an honest, professional, and ethical attorney he is, as well as a man. He helps the community. I've referred him so many friends and family, and he has voluntarily given them free consultations and advice regarding car accidents, police brutality, you name it, he's helped them. He's also referred a dear friend of mine to you, Mr. Leving, and you helped them tremendously with their divorce case and seeking a father's rights to his child. So I just want to thank you both for being upstanding, ethical, and honest attorneys. We definitely need more of you in the city of Chicago as well as our community.
No, thank
you.
Thank you for calling. Our next caller, you're on the air. Chicago Counterpoint Television, brought to you by the Fatherhood Educational Institute. What can we do for you today?
Yeah, is there a time limit for filing a medical malpractice or negligence lawsuit?
Absolutely, and Mr. O'Connor will be glad to help you.
There's a lot of limitations, and it depends on what entity you're suing, which is why it's so important to consult early. If you're suing a county entity, your statute of limitations could be as short as 1 year. There's also not only a statute of limitations, which we hear generally for personal injury is 2 years, but it can be as short as 1 year with a municipality. But if you have what's called a statute of repose, which is not only a statute of limitations, let's say you didn't discover that a doctor left a sponge in you for 2 years, are you out? No, but there's a statute of repose that says you got to file a suit within 4 years. As with minors, though, they extend that statute to up to 8 years, that statute of repose. But it's so important to get in early because there's a lot of cases that go back and forth. You need to consult early, not wait. People's biggest mistake is I can talk with the insurance company myself, and perhaps they'll be reasonable and resolve it with me. But I'm telling you that oftentimes they string you along just to get you to the point to where your back is up against the wall and you can't file that case in a timely manner because medical malpractice cases require an affidavit from a doctor that's independent that your lawyer hires that says that the doctor breached the minimum standard of care. So it's very important to do it early.
What Kevin is trying to explain is you must keep track of time limitations, timelines. You don't want to end up a target looking for an arrow. You can end up negotiating with an opposing attorney or somebody for an insurance company, and you could have a case that could be worth $20 million. and you could just negotiate, and end up set up where you miss the statute of limitations and then you get zero. There's no accountability, and you could have a brain damaged child that will have no real help for the rest of his life. So don't get manipulated and get in a situation where you get played and miss the statute of limitations. It's really, really important. We're not in a perfect world. You don't want to be a target looking for an arrow. Now we're coming close to the end of the show. I'm going to try and take one more caller, but we're going to have to be really, really short with the question. Caller, you're on the air. Attorney Leving and O'Connor, what can we do for you?
Yes, I'm wondering if my child's accident occurred in a different state, do I have to file the malpractice suit in that state where the accident took place or where I actually live?
That becomes a difficult question to answer for a lot of reasons. Sometimes if the defendant is doing business in Illinois, every state is unique in terms of jurisdiction. So if you have a case, every law in every state is different in all 50 states. So generally, the general rule is you have to file in the state where the accident occurred or the injury occurred, but there are many exceptions to that. I've managed to file cases that have happened in Wisconsin, here in Illinois, and the reason being that the defendant may have resided in Illinois or had a business or a corporation that resided in Illinois, or that there was significant contacts in Illinois. It's important to look into that because even if you consult with someone here, we can always deal with somebody over in another state where I've actually been admitted, and I'm sure Jeff has, what we call pro hoc vice in other states where the courts in those states allow us to act as lawyers even in another state. And I've gone as far as South Dakota and New York and California in various cases.
Yeah. The key is there are lawyers that will forum shop for the state, for the jurisdiction that is most favorable for their client. This does happen. And we've handled cases all over the country, California, New Jersey, New York, Indiana, Wisconsin, Florida. But the key here is there are lawyers that forum shop for the most favorable jurisdiction opposed to the one that's least favorable, because that would be pretty ridiculous. But I do appreciate you calling in, and if you have any other questions, you could always contact the Fatherhood Educational Institute. You're looking at their website now, and I'm going to have to wrap up. The show is over. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you having me, and it's a wonderful program, and you've done wonderful things for the community. Your book has been a wonderful inspiration to read about people and how they should act and how you should treat your children, because they are our future, and you've really pointed that out, and I can't say enough about how much you've done for the community, and I appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it, and I look forward to our show next week, same time, same place. We're going to have Attorney Filipovich on talking about appeals. If you lose a trial, you can still win with Andrei Filipovich. So we'll see you next week, same place, same time, Chicago Counterpoint Television. God bless.